And so I would love to know, just because I don't know, what do you think is the best way to assess one's executive functioning skills? And I'm sure that's going to differ by age, but what are just some general ways that you can look at that?
So that's a really great question, because I think people struggle with this. It's so important to know that no matter what test we are giving a child, they have to use their executive functioning system.
Darn it.
Right?
It keeps coming up.
It keeps coming up. So if I'm going to take a spelling test or a math test, I have to be aware of the test. I have to focus to the test. I have to sustain attention. I have to self-monitor through it. I have to self-correct. I have to be able to initiate and execute a plan to be able to pace myself through it. Right? That's only a portion. I have to have enough working memory to be able to hold on to the information. So the idea alone of giving a test assumes executive functioning. So all of the really great researchers out there on executive functioning say that standardized assessment alone is the absolute worst way to assess executive functioning, because you're expecting them to use executive functioning to test the executive functioning. Right.
And then lo and behold, it doesn't go well.
Right, exactly. But this is why so many kids will present like they have dyslexia, or they'll present like they have a language disorder, or they'll present like, they can't do well in science or whatever else it is, because the regulation of it is poor, and they have to use the executive functioning system to perform in those areas. So we oftentimes see the symptom as the issue, right? We're like, oh, that's the problem. It's math. It's reading, it's something else, which sometimes they do actually have true learning disabilities in those cognitive areas. But a lot of times, because the way that they're asked to be assessed, right, just assessment alone means executive functioning has to be cued, and if there's a deficit within the executive functioning system, well, lo and behold, they don't do well on their math tests. Lo and behold, they don't do well on their spelling test, right? So when it comes to assessment, it really has to be a dynamic approach. We can use some standardized assessments, but with a grain of salt, and that never should be the only thing that we use to assess. Work samples, right? Getting work samples is a really big part of that, looking at their performance over time with different activities. What are some other things? We use parent questionnaires, right? Parent feedback and teacher feedback is really, really important. What does their daily life look like? What does school look like? How are they regulating themselves throughout their day? And then loads of observation. So just loads and loads of observation. So all of those pieces and parts would make up a really good assessment for someone to be able to say, yeah, we have some executive functioning difficulties going on.
I was thinking observation would be huge. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking, okay, so we're using as SLPs, looking at these standardized language assessments, and then coming back and saying, you've got all these issues with your language, when maybe it really wasn't. They just didn't even have that attention to be able to do the task. And so, and then we jump right into speech and language goals.
That's right.
And so it's kind of this where we missed completely where's the root of it. And we're working on things that, like, we've jumped up too many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's really important to remember too, that with executive functioning, really this, the cognitive anchor for both executive functioning and language are the same. And that's that ability semantically to be able to create mental representations for language, that ability to visualize. Because executive functioning requires me to be able to see myself in the future, to be able to plan for what needs to happen, right? To be able to make a prediction, I have to be able to see a situation in the future that requires mental imagery to be able to see what's going to happen. So I have to project myself, or I have to project a situation in my mind into the future. And then when we talk about storing information, well, then we have to hold on to it and project backwards and look backwards, in our mind. I do an activity with people when I'm presenting, and have them think about the best vacation they ever went on, right? Just think about it. Well, what happens in your mind? I would hope that we would see I see a beach and, palm trees, but we see something because that's how that brain is really going to anchor information. And so that ability, that internal, that visualization, the mental representations becomes that anchor for both our internal and external language, and then also executive functioning. And so bringing it all back down to that. And that starts developing, those mental representations start developing so early. We're talking infancy. So, wow. So when that period, 6 to 9 months, when, if you leave baby alone for 6 to 9 months, baby cries, right? Because mom's gone forever. Well, around 6 to 9 months, baby stops crying. Why? We develop object permanence. What's object permanence? Object permanence is we know that the objects are permanent. Why? Because we have a picture of them in our imagination. So when mom leaves, baby knows, is holding a picture of mom in her mind, knowing that mom is still there and mom is going to come back. We see this ability continue to develop through pretend play, right? Around 2, 3. And, they're bringing you the little plate that doesn't have anything on it. And they're going like, Tutti, you want a cookie? Right? And there's no cookie, but there is a cookie. Where's the cookie? The cookie's in their mind, right? So all of this, and there's even research that shows how they believe there's some of this executive functioning development even earlier, like a couple months, because the baby's already anticipating. They show with like eye tracking that the babies are actually anticipating where an object is going to move. And so that imitation, like the tracking and the anticipating is sort of this beginning of that executive functioning development. So anyways, that visualization in infants is developing so early, and it becomes that cognitive anchor on which we lay language and which our executive functioning system really can develop.